In the quiet town of Redwood Grove, nestled deep within the ancient forests of the Pacific Northwest, there lived a man named Mark. Mark was a creature of habit, his life revolving around work, the gym, and tinkering with his collection of antique radios. He was fond of late-night browsing on Craigslist, seeking out old radios and other electronics that he could restore and add to his collection. One stormy night, Mark stumbled upon an ad that caught his eye. It was a listing for a rare 1953 Zenith H845 radio, described as being in near perfect condition. The price was almost too good to be true. Excited, he responded to the ad, hoping he wasn't too late. To his delight, he received a reply within minutes. The seller, a man named Carl, provided an address for pickup and a phone number for further correspondence. There was just one condition: the exchange had to be made at midnight, as Carl worked night shifts and wouldn't be home earlier. Eager to add the radio to his collection, Mark agreed. As midnight approached, Mark set out with a sense of foreboding. The storm had intensified, and lightning tore through the sky like jagged daggers. The wind roared through the trees as he drove deeper into the forest, following the GPS directions to Carl's secluded cabin. Upon arrival, Mark noticed that the cabin looked ancient and long abandoned, its wood weathered and moss creeping up its sides. The windows were dark, but a single flickering light beckoned from the porch. Mark hesitated for a moment before mustering the courage to knock on the door. To his surprise, the door creaked open under the force of his knock, revealing a dimly lit room filled with old radios and other electronics. A chilling draft swept through the room, sending shivers down Mark's spine. He hesitated for a moment before calling out, "Carl? Are you here?" Suddenly, a raspy voice came from the shadows. "Yes, I've been expecting you, Mark." The figure of an old man emerged, his eyes hidden beneath the brim of a wide hat. "Here's the radio you're looking for," he said, holding out the Zenith H845. Mark handed over the cash, eager to leave the eerie place. As he turned to go, Carl whispered, "Take care of my radio, Mark. It has a life of its own." Mark, unsettled, nodded and hurried back to his car. Once home, Mark placed the radio on his workbench and began to examine it. It was indeed in near perfect condition. He decided to test it, and the moment he turned it on, a gut-wrenching scream pierced the air. Mark's heart raced, and he quickly turned it off. The following days, Mark was plagued by unexplainable occurrences. Doors would slam shut, radios would turn on and off by themselves, and he was haunted by whispers in the dark. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, followed by something malevolent. Desperate for answers, Mark turned to Craigslist once more, searching for information on Carl or the radio. As he scrolled, he came across a news article from the 1950s about a gruesome murder in Redwood Grove. The victim, a young woman, had been found near an old cabin. The primary suspect, a reclusive man named Carl, had disappeared without a trace. The murder weapon? An old Zenith H845 radio. Panic set in, and Mark knew he had to rid himself of the cursed radio. He frantically posted an ad on Craigslist, offering it for a ridiculously low price, hoping someone would take it off his hands. Moments later, he received a response from a woman named Alice, who was eager to purchase the radio for her husband's collection. They agreed to meet at a local cafe the next day. Mark arrived at the cafe with the Zenith H845, his hands shaking as he clutched the radio. Alice, a kind-looking woman, greeted him warmly. Mark quickly explained the radio's eerie history, but to his surprise, Alice didn't seem fazed. "I've always been fascinated by the paranormal," she said. "I'll take good care of it, Mark." Relieved, Mark handed the radio to Alice and wished her luck. As they parted ways, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The haunting occurrences ceased, and his life returned to normal. Meanwhile, Alice's fascination with the radio grew. She spent hours listening to its static whispers and eerie music that seemed to emanate from a bygone era. She became obsessed with the radio and the dark energy it possessed, Late one stormy night, as Alice listened to the radio, a chilling message emerged from the static: "Free me. Free me and I'll grant you your heart's desire." Entranced, Alice whispered back, "How?" A raspy voice answered, "Return me to the cabin in the woods. Bring a sacrifice." Unbeknownst to her husband, Alice became consumed by the idea of freeing the entity within the radio. She searched Craigslist for a potential sacrifice, luring an unsuspecting victim with the promise of an antique radio collection. On a dark and stormy night, Alice led her victim deep into the woods, to the abandoned cabin where Carl had once lived. The wind howled and the cabin groaned as they entered, the old radios crackling to life with sinister energy. As Alice prepared for the ritual, she knew there would be no turning back. The radio's voice echoed in her mind, promising power and knowledge beyond her wildest dreams. But little did she know, she was only the next pawn in a dark and twisted game, played by an ancient evil that had haunted Redwood Grove for centuries. And so a horrifying cycle continued, fueled by the cursed radio and the souls it ensnared in its wicked grasp. For in the shadows of the town's dark past, there lurked a force that was always watching, always waiting, and always eager to strike a sinister bargain.